Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wicked Encounters, where we explore just what goes bump in the night. I'm your host, Allie, and it's every horror fan's favorite time of year, October. In celebration of the spookiest month, I've compiled a list of movies that I think are worth sharing with you guys, and I'm calling it the 31 Days of Wicked Horror. We're on the 7th day of October now. The first full week of spooky month has come and gone way too soon, in my opinion. But in case it's your first time checking in, I'll let you know how I've selected these movies that I believe are worthy enough for you to watch. First off, none of the movies are going to be older than 20 years, so we can add some newer videos to our must-watch list instead of continuing to repeat the same ones from 50 years ago. Hello, Nightmare on Elm Street. Secondly, I will be providing the synopsis and plot of the movies for those who may not like surprises or just want to listen to see what the movies are about. There will be a slide letting you know when we're coming up on it, and I'll let you know where it's safe to click to avoid spoilers. Also, while many of the movies are streamable, I'm not going to really provide that info on where you can watch them, because it varies based on where you live, and also streaming services love removing and adding movies like there's no tomorrow. Finally, I'm going to give you some reasons as to why the movie stands out and why I think you'll like it. So, with that, 7th on our list is The Babadook. The Babadook is a 2014 Australian psychological horror film written and directed by Jennifer Kent in her feature directorial debut and was produced by Screen Australia, Causeway Films, South Australian Film Corporation, oh my god, why are there so many of you? Smoking Gun Productions, and Entertainment One. The story centers around a widowed mother, Amelia Vanek, and her troubled young son, Samuel, who are haunted by a mysterious entity that emerges from a children's pop-up book. I'm going to go more in depth and go over the plot of the movie now, so if you'd like to skip, you'll know where to skip to in 3, 2, 1. The film begins with Amelia, a single mother still grieving the loss of her husband, Oscar, who died in a car accident while driving her to the hospital to give birth to Samuel. This traumatic event has left a deep emotional scar on Amelia, who struggles with her grief and the demands of raising Samuel alone. Samuel, now 6 years old, is a highly imaginative but troubled child. He becomes increasingly fixated on monsters, believing that they are real, and that he needs to protect himself and his mother from them. His behavior becomes erratic and disruptive, causing tension between him and Amelia, who is exhausted and overwhelmed by his constant need for attention and protection. One night, Samuel asks Amelia to read him a bedtime story. He chooses a mysterious red-covered pop-up book from the shelf titled Mr. Babadook. The book tells the story of a sinister, shadowy figure called the Babadook, who torments its victims once they become aware of its presence. The book's eerie, rhyming verses warn that once the Babadook enters your home, you cannot get rid of it. As Amelia reads the unsettling story, Samuel becomes terrified, convinced that the Babadook is real. Amelia is disturbed by the book's content and tries to dismiss it as just a story, but Samuel's fear only grows. He begins to act out more violently, even bringing homemade weapons to school to defend himself against the Babadook. His behavior becomes so alarming that he is expelled from school, further isolating Amelia and straining their relationship. As the days pass, Amelia starts to experience strange occurrences in their home. She hears unexplained noises, finds doors opening by themselves, and begins to feel an oppressive presence watching her. Samuel's paranoia spreads to her, and she starts to believe that the Babadook might be real as well. The book reappears after she tries to destroy it, each time with more disturbing illustrations that depict her killing Samuel and then herself. Amelia's mental state deteriorates rapidly as she becomes increasingly sleep-deprived and paranoid. She begins to see the Babadook in the shadows of her home, a tall, ghastly figure with long, claw-like fingers and a top hat. The entity appears to be feeding off her grief, amplifying her despair and anger towards Samuel. The more she tries to resist, the stronger the Babadook becomes. In a pivotal scene, Amelia is fully possessed by the Babadook, who takes control of her mind and body. Under its influence, she becomes violent and abusive towards Samuel, shouting at him and even attempting to kill him. However, Samuel, despite his fear, remains determined to save his mother. He sets traps for the Babadook and ultimately confronts it in the basement, where Oscar's belongings are kept. Samuel's bravery and love for his mother break the Babadook's hold on Amelia. In a climactic showdown, Amelia confronts the entity, asserting her power over it. She screams at the Babadook to leave her and Samuel alone, forcing it into submission. The Babadook retreats to the basement where it is locked away. The film concludes with a sense of ambiguity. Amelia and Samuel, though scarred by their ordeal, appear to have regained some semblance of normalcy. They care for the Babadook, which remains in the basement, feeding it earthworms and keeping it contained. This ending suggests that while they have not fully vanquished the Babadook, they have learned to live with it, symbolizing Amelia's acceptance and management of her grief and trauma. And with that, the movie ends. Hello, and welcome back. To those who stayed, I hope you enjoyed what you heard enough to give it a watch. I won't lie, I'd have probably drop-kicked Samuel with his screeching and antics, but that's why I'm not a mother yet. Gotta center myself first. Woosah. Despite that, though, The Babadook is truly a wonderful movie, but I bet you're wondering why. What makes The Babadook stand out? Well, for one, its psychological depth. The Babadook is more than just a horror film. It's a profound exploration of grief, depression, and the struggles of motherhood. The film uses the supernatural entity, the Babadook, as a metaphor for the unresolved trauma and emotional pain that Amelia experiences. This psychological complexity adds depth to the horror, making it resonate on a more personal and emotional level. Symbolism and metaphor. The Babadook itself is a powerful symbol of suppressed grief and trauma. The film suggests that the more Amelia tries to ignore and suppress her emotions, the stronger and more dangerous the Babadook becomes. This metaphor for how unprocessed grief can manifest in destructive ways is both compelling and relatable, making the horror feel more real and poignant. Focus on character development. The film places a strong emphasis on the relationship between Amelia and Samuel, portraying the strains of single motherhood and the toll it takes on both of them. The characters are well developed and complex, with their emotional struggles driving the narrative. This focus on character over conventional horror tropes makes the story more engaging and the scares more impactful. Atmosphere and cinematography. The Babadook is visually striking, with its use of shadows, lighting, and color palette contributing to the film's unsettling atmosphere. The house, with its dark corners and claustrophobic spaces, becomes a character in itself, reflecting Amelia's mental state. The film's use of practical effects and minimal CGI gives it a grounded, almost surreal quality that enhances the horror. Unconventional horror. Rather than relying on jump scares and gore, the Babadook builds its horror through psychological tension and the gradual unraveling of its protagonist's mind. The film's scares are more about what is implied or unseen, creating a lingering sense of dread that stays with the viewer. This approach to horror is more subtle and sophisticated, appealing to those who appreciate slow-burn, thought-provoking films. Strong performances. Essie Davis delivers a powerful performance as Amelia, capturing the character's descent into madness with both intensity and nuance. Her portrayal of a mother on the edge, struggling with her own mental health while trying to care for her son, is both heartbreaking and terrifying. Noah Wiseman as Samuel also gives a convincing performance, portraying the child's fear, love, and resilience in the face of unimaginable terror. Exploration of mental health. The film is a poignant commentary on mental health, particularly the challenges of dealing with grief and depression. It addresses how these issues can manifest in harmful ways if not properly acknowledged and treated. The portrayal of Amelia's struggle with her mental health is raw and honest, adding a layer of social relevance to the horror. Ambiguity and interpretation. The Babadook leaves much to interpretation, particularly its ending. Amelia may have come to terms with her grief, but she also must continue to manage it. This ambiguity invites viewers to think more deeply about the film's themes, and to consider their own interpretation of what the Babadook might represent. Critical acclaim and cultural impact. The Babadook received widespread critical acclaim for its originality, depth, and emotional resonance. It has since become a cult classic, often cited as one of the best horror films of the 21st century. Its unique approach to horror, focusing on psychological and emotional terror, has influenced other filmmakers and contributed to a broader understanding of what horror can be. The Babadook stands out as a modern horror masterpiece due to its psychological depth, symbolic storytelling, and focus on character-driven horror. It's a film that transcends the genre by exploring universal themes of grief, motherhood, and mental health, making it not only a terrifying experience, but also a deeply moving and thought-provoking one. And that's all that I have on the Babadook. But don't worry, I have 24 movies that I'll be sharing with you this month. What do you think they could be? How do you feel about the Babadook being on the list? Would it make it onto yours? Do you believe it to be one of the best horror movies of the 21st century? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to discuss horror more in depth with you all, so feel free to join the Wicked Encounters Discord group. If you like what I do and want to support me, consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and clicking that little bell icon so you know when I post. If you want to support me in other ways, maybe check out my Patreon. Speaking of, I'd like to give a big thank you to my patrons, Nakala and Beefalump. You guys are helping make my October a creative one. Well, that's all I've got time for today. So remember, I'm Allie, this is Wicked Encounters, and I'll see you next time. Bye!